Dr. Dario Neri's academic career is one of the more decorated I've seen. He earned his PhD in chemistry from ETH Zurich, studying under the supervision of Nobel Prize winner Professor Kurt Wuthrich. His doctoral dissertation earned him the silver medal of ETH, the school's highest honor for outstanding theses. Dr. Neri's postdoctoral work was spent in the lab of another Nobel Prize winner, Sir Gregory Winter, at the Cambridge Center of Protein Engineering. In 1996, he returned to ETH Zurich as an assistant professor in molecular structure biology. In 1999, he became professor of biomacromolecules in the Department of Chemistry and Applied Biosciences and remained there until 2020. During that tenure, he won the ISOBM Abbott Prize, the Amgen Dompe Biotech Award, the Prus Award, and the Phoenix Prize, and he's authored more than 400 publications in international scientific journals. I'm Matt Pillar. This is the Business of Biotech, and on today's episode, we're going to learn why Dr. Neri walked away from his gleaming throne in academia to found Philogen and assume CEO and Chief Science Officer responsibilities there in 2020. We're also going to dissect some markers of the company's success, from a deep pipeline boasting a couple of phase 3 assets to a state-of-the-art internal manufacturing facility and some big-time collaborations. Dr. Neri, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks a lot for the opportunity.
It's my pleasure. We're honored that you could make the time to join us. And I want to start at a likely place to start. I want to start with the origin story of Philogen, which, you know, in my brief research, I saw was technically founded back in 1996. But you know, looking at it on paper, it took you 24 years to go all in on it as CEO and CSO. So tell us that story and why that sort of chronology.
Well, with pleasure. It's a company that was started by myself and my two brothers, Duccio and Giovanni, basically because when I was still at the Cambridge Center for Protein Engineering with Sir Gregory Winter, we made, I think, an important discovery. We generated the first fully human antibodies capable of selective localization on tumor blood vessels, sparing normal tissue. So we were able to bring antibodies really to where you would like them to be. So we had the vision that if these molecules were good, we should try to turn them into products. That's how the company started, and little by little, the company has grown.
Mm-hmm. So little by little, as I said, you know, the founding in '96, was it sort of a back burner endeavor or a side endeavor in the interim, like between that time and when you you know, officially assumed the responsibility that you have now?
No, actually, so it started with the vision that these molecules could be important. So we in-licensed some technology, we developed some technology, but let's say for the first couple of years, the company was a paper company. We were acquiring technology, but early 1999, we signed our first collaboration with Schering AG. At the time, now Schering is part of Bayer, but at the time it was an independent company. And we actually worked for 12 years in a growing collaboration with Schering AG. And my brothers were operational full-time in the company. I continued to work as a professor at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, providing advice until the company had grown so much and the products had advanced that I took the courage actually to leave a very good position in a university, which is my alma mater, and work full-time in the company, hoping to bring our products to the market. But it all started and continued with the vision that the products could be useful, and we have always tried to do best out of these technologies and what we have done in the following years.
Yeah, so I need to ask a follow-up on this, because, you know, when I look at the companies that I interview, obviously, I mean, it goes without saying, this is the first time I've had a conversation with the CEO of a biotech company that was founded by he and his two brothers. I mean, this is you know, truly a family affair, and what an outstanding family, right? I mean, What's the backstory there? Do you all come from an academic or medical family? How do you end up in a situation? Now, obviously, when I look over your left shoulder, for anyone who's watching this interview on video, when I look over your left shoulder, I guess the odds may have been stacked in your favor, given the fact that there's a very large family portrait over your left shoulder. So maybe the odds were a little better, given that you had a lot to start with. But sort of tell me how'd that come to pass that you and your two brothers found yourselves both academically astute and in position to create a biopharma company?
Well, it's probably a very Italian story, and family plays a big part of it. But actually, my great grandfather was already treating patients in 1899 with antibody therapeutics. He was the first man to use anti-sera to treat anthrax patients. And he started a company which was very successful. And at some stage it was sold. It became Chiron, then Novartis. Now it's part of GSK vaccine. And so, and my father used to work in that company and always encouraged the sons to do something in the pharmaceutical sector. We happen to have complementary skills. I am a chemist by training. Duccio, who was the CEO for the first 24 years, studied business administration, and the third brother has a PhD in biotechnology. So in a way, the family setting helped, but in the end, it was work that we did together with many talented collaborators to whom we are very grateful.
Yeah. Well, the fact that, you've got a handful of phase 3 candidates and have made it this far is a testament not only to your leadership and your business skills, but also your family ties. I mean, the fact that these three brothers have survived being in business together for as long as you have and made such great progress. It's a testament to the Neri family.
Well, most kind. I mean, the vision was always a very simple one, but an important one. I think there are opportunities in delivering therapeutics to the site of disease. This is something that already Paul Ehrlich 100 years ago had envisioned. This Zauberkugel, these magic bullets that go target the disease tissue and help spare normal tissues. It's a simple concept, yet it has to be played with the right tools. First of all, if you want to do targeted delivery, it's important to know that the in vivo selectivity is good, and nuclear medicine can be very important for really checking whether the molecules have the selectivity that you require for a certain intervention. And then everything else follows. Once we have good ligands for pharmacodelivery, be them antibodies or be them small molecules, then there are opportunities for cancer therapy with cytokine payloads, with radionuclides, with drugs, but probably also beyond oncology, because the need for pharmacodelivery is actually very real for many indications. So this is, in a nutshell, always the vision of ligand-based pharmacodelivery, playing with the best possible tools for ligand discovery helps. But it's a complex operation from discovery to manufacturing to clinical trials.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, so it's a complex operation, and it's also, once you probably move, the further away from discovery that you move, the further away from maybe, and I don't want to make any assumptions here, but the further away maybe from your comfort zone in academia you move. So tell me a little bit about that, just from your personal reflections on this transition from such a long and decorated career in academia to the business world. I'm assuming this was your first entrepreneurial endeavor. Just give me some sense for how that's affected you personally, and how you've sort of managed that transition.
Oh, yes, it has not been an easy transition, because I am an academic at heart. I really love discovery, and I have this dream that actually one can do very good discovery in academia, but also in biotech. And I don't see this division. So it's all about hopefully working on important problems and having the right tools. So I've been privileged really to have good teachers, and I've tried to copy my teachers as much as possible. So both Kurt Wüttrich and Sir Gregory Winter did not win the Nobel Prize by chance. They were very good and they worked very hard. And I always wanted to develop drugs. And Sir Gregory is really a role model in this regard, because he is not only a first-class scientist, but he has created important medicines, like his co-inventor in Humira, Campath-1, and other important medicines. But he has also started successful companies such as Cambridge Antibody Technology, now part of AstraZeneca, or Domantis, or more recently Bicycle, that was co-founded with one of my former PhD students, Christian Heines. So over the years, I think I've seen good persons like Sir Gregory starting important operations. I've always encouraged my students to blow their own trumpet and start their own companies. Some of these companies have been very successful, but I have always worked on one industrial operation, that was Philogen, as long as it was possible to be both a university professor and be associated with a company. I've done it. Then when we brought the company to the stock exchange, I think it was sensible to do only one thing, also to avoid conflicts of interest. And so with a few months of notice, we planned a smooth transition so that the PhD students could finish their PhD. In total, I've trained 85 PhD students. And then at some stage in 2020, I moved full-time to the company, where I now serve as CEO and also Chief Scientific Officer. So it was a change from a comfort zone. Academia is great, but if you want to bring a product to the market, this has to be done in the industrial setting.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and there's probably some expectation that you carry on that long-standing family legacy that dates back to your great-great-grandfather, working in the pharma industry. So excellent. You've been able to live the best of both worlds. Do you miss teaching at all? Do you miss academia?
I'm still associated with ETH, and so I still carry a professor title, and I still teach therapeutic proteins. We tried within the company to have a very academic structure with PhD students and also with visiting scientists. So I still do teaching, but to be 100% honest, to me, there is not a big difference making research in industry or in academia, as long as the spirit is the same. And I've seen it happening in other good companies. When I think of Cambridge Antibody Technology, but also Genentech, especially the Genentech in the old times. I mean, that was a clear environment where people could do great industrial research and then become a professor. And I think it's good if there is some osmosis between these two realities, industry and academia.
Sure. Yeah. We've had plenty of conversations with both academics and folks on the business side over the years, where the gap between those two worlds has been lamented in some fashion. But it's great to see advocates like you who've experienced both sides of that coin, and not just both sides, but as you said, the osmosis, sort of the meshing. It's great to talk with someone who brings that perspective of collaboration between the two sides. Yep. I was going to ask you. So you're you fancy yourself or call yourself a Swiss Italian biotech. So I just kind of want to get a sense for that. Why Switzerland and Italy, and what is the, I guess, market? What does the biotech market look like in that region?
So basically, as mentioned, the company started with discoveries that were made first in the UK and then in Switzerland. And I've been a professor at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich for 26 years now. So there are strong Swiss roots. But in Italy, very early on, we could buy a GMP production facility. So we started doing manufacturing in Italy very early on. We set up a clinical development organization, and we ended up really running clinical trials in the United States, at present also in 13 European countries, and soon hopefully also in Australia. So you do things when and where you have good opportunities. We had opportunity to do good discovery in Switzerland, and we continue running most of our discovery programs in Switzerland. In Italy, we do GMP manufacturing. We have just completed the construction of a second GMP manufacturing facility intended for commercial operations. And we run clinical trials in collaboration with hopefully the best clinical centers worldwide. So it's Swiss-Italian, and I have lived out of Italy for the last 35 years, but 1 year ago, I relocated to Italy, and I spent maybe 2/3 of my time in Italy and 1/3 in Switzerland.
Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent. One of the things that strikes me about your company is the depth of your pipeline. You've got dozens, and you have dozens of candidates, at least 3 in phase 3 clinical trials, if I read that right, and another 7 in phase 2. So I guess give me a sense of your portfolio strategy. As I said, it's deep, it's advanced in many respects. Which is somewhat uncommon. We see a lot of companies that maybe have a more narrow pipeline. So tell me what the strategy is there in terms of the depth and I guess speed of advancement of your candidates.
Thanks a lot. We have 2 products which are more advanced than the other ones, and they're called Nidlegy and Fibromon. Nidlegy is a dermato-oncology product that initially we developed in stage 3 BC melanoma, and we saw and published what I consider to be strong phase 2 clinical data. And we see an opportunity for patients, especially with recurrent stage 3 melanoma disease, because these patients come back with the disease. At some stage, they move to stage 4 disease, which is unfortunately a nasty disease, and you want to block the disease at that stage. So we had strong phase 2 data. We have launched phase 3 clinical trials in Europe and in the United States. And especially in Europe, we are very close to completion of recruitment of a trial with 214 patients. So we are trying our best. Once we saw the efficacy of the product on these superficial melanoma lesions, we thought, okay, why don't we give it also to other skin conditions which are nasty and usually require surgery, such as high-risk basal cell carcinoma or squamous cell carcinoma of the skin. And so the melanoma results triggered then pivotal phase 2 clinical trials in non-melanoma skin cancer. For Fibromon, it's a similar concept. Fibromon is an antibody TNF fusion. So it's a fusion protein that delivers tumor necrosis factor to the tumor. We have studied it for many years, first as monotherapy and then in combination. And at some stage, we had signals of clinical activity in soft tissue sarcoma and in glioblastoma. And these are really underserved indications. They are nasty indications where typically standard of care drugs don't work. They don't induce objective response, and they typically don't cure patients. We saw an opportunity. So we saw that we were curing mice with this disease, also with orthotopic models. Then we moved the products to the clinic. We were encouraged by what we saw, and now we are pushing really with a lot of energy in trials with a pivotal potential, hopefully bringing the products to the market. Let me mention that in glioblastoma multiforme, especially in patients with recurrent disease with unmethylated MGMT promoter, really the response rate to standard of care lomustine is usually 0%. So you have, unfortunately, a nasty disease, and the standard of care doesn't even shrink the tumor.
Mhm.
We have reported now objective responses in a number of patients, and so we are obviously very motivated to get the real picture from these large studies.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're doing this. Another thing that strikes me as interesting and worth discussion is that you're doing this all in-house. You're set up for discovery, development, manufacturing in your own, as you mentioned, now 2 Italian CGMP manufacturing facilities. Describe to me how the organizational structure enables that. How have you set the company up from an organizational standpoint to be able to manage such a deep and diverse pipeline internally, cradle to grave?
I think we have an integrated company from discovery to manufacturing to phase 3 clinical trials. We don't have yet products on the market, so we don't have sales force. But over the last 26 years, we grew these activities. Maybe we could have gone faster, but at least we grew them organically. And now we have these skills within the company. The next big challenge, of course, is to show that our products reach the endpoints in the pivotal trials. And then the next chapter will start, which is whether we take the extra commitment of trying to manufacture the products ourselves or else find alternative structures. That's still a topic of active discussion within the company, and soon we will reach decisions on this matter.
When you're striving to excel in a new arena, the best guides are the ones already doing it well. The Business of Biotech brings those voices forward to help new and emerging biopharmas turn their innovations, like mRNA and cell and gene therapies, into clinical realities. Tune in and subscribe for insights on hiring, regulatory, and other need-to-know topics for biopharma leaders. The podcast is brought to you in collaboration with Cytiva. Check out their resources at cytiva.com/emerging biotech. That's CYTIVA.com/emerging biotech. Yeah. So to date, though, like to support clinical trials, that manufacturing is taking place in-house. Is it? Is that manufacturing capacity? Let me pose it to you this way: the current manufacturing capacity to support clinical trials, to make the transition and scale up to commercial capacity. Would it be a great big giant leap looking at the big markets and patient demand that you serve or that you intend to serve?
No, we have built the second GMP production facility exactly with this vision. We are facilitated by the fact that cytokine-based therapeutics are highly potent drugs, and they usually don't require a lot of material. You know that cytokines were maybe not very fashionable 10 years ago. We started working in the field 20 years ago, and now they've become probably one of the hottest areas of biotechnology. But again, typically our cytokine-based therapeutics are given in the single-digit milligram dose. For example, Fibromun is given at 1 milligram per patient. Mm-hmm. And so this actually facilitates the opportunity to manufacture these antibody-cytokine fusions for a global market. The fusion proteins are produced by mammalian cells. They are purified straight out of the supernatant. They don't require chemical conjugation. And so if you make the comparison, a typical anti-CD20 antibody given at 800 milligram per patient or an antibody-cytokine fusion given at 1 milligram per patient, then it becomes easier, even for a younger company like Philogen, to set up the process and to be in control also of manufacturing.
Okay. Yeah. So moving backwards, sort of on that, the chronology of this questioning, this line of questioning, at a development, at the development stage, back when you were working on your first development projects as Philogen, right? Was it a conscious decision, a strategic decision to say, yeah, we're not gonna go to a CDMO. We have the the intellectual capacity and the facilities infrastructure to handle development on our own, and that's what we prefer to do. So what was the thinking back then?
No, it's exactly as you say. And also it's this feeling, not only we have the know-how of how to produce these products, but also there is in the end an advantage in terms you control the quality, speed, so you don't rely on having to finalize collaborations. And once you have set it up, and this is obviously a barrier to the entry, but once you have set it up, then there is also a cost-saving factor, plus you can do manufacturing also for partners. And so this is one of the things I'm most proud of. We took the effort of setting it up, and we all know how regulated GMP manufacturing is. Mm-hmm. But once this is available, it facilitates really the discovery of new molecules. It allows you to fail. Occasionally we have molecules that are not as good as we hope, but having the opportunity to fail more often hopefully gives us the opportunity to be successful one day.
Yeah, I like that transparency. On the clinical side, are you managing to date your clinical trials internally as well, or are you working with the CRO on those?
No, it's a mixture. For countries which are closer to Italy and Switzerland, we normally also do all the monitoring ourselves. But for example, for operations in the United States or in Eastern Europe, then we rely on CROs.
Yeah, well, I would, you would think, you said that you've got clinical trials happening in the US, 13 European countries, and soon Australia. That would be, it would require quite a geographic distribution of your organization to manage all that internally. That
we don't do. So for countries that are best operated through CROs, we work with CROs.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I've read about a number of drug discovery collaborations your company struck with companies like J&J and AbbVie, Novartis, Boehringer Ingelheim, and others. And I'm curious about that. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions around that. One, like, what do you think is key to establishing relationships with companies of those, of that caliber? And how do those collaborative agreements play into your company's strategy or go forward mission?
All our programs start with the discovery of ligands, be them human antibodies or be them small organic molecules isolated from DNA encoded chemical libraries. So I think we have always been strong at creating large encoded libraries. So I learned antibody phage technology when working with Sir Gregory, and we have made human antibodies for the last 30 years. We have been among the first to work on DNA encoded chemical libraries. We probably published the first ever paper on the construction and screening of DNA encoded chemical libraries 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. So since we generate ligands out of our libraries, and it has happened that companies would either seek our help for discovery, which we would do, or maybe we had ligands that they would need for pharmacodelivery programs. And some of these products have actually moved to the clinic, and I think it's a nice addition. We are still focused and dedicated to our pipeline. But for example, we have a collaboration with Pfizer in the field of chronic inflammation. That's possibly more complex field than oncology because trials tend to be larger and have different requirements. And so this is a nice integration. And sometimes we do fee-for-service discovery if we can help our partners. Sometimes these are license and collaboration agreements, but it all starts hopefully with excellence in the discovery of ligands, in the discovery of prototypes. And most of our industrial collaborations have been consecutive contracts in the sense that after the first collaboration, we have signed additional agreements with our partners.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Have those collaborative agreements propelled I guess the advance from even from a monetary and funding standpoint of the company internally? I mean, have they been key to that? I guess that strategy.
Very much so, because we started the company back in 1996 without venture capital. We never needed venture capital to grow the company. We were cash flow positive every single year between 1999 and 2019, and this was thanks to the industrial collaborations. At some stage in 2019, when the pivotal trials were starting, we knew that we had to spend more. And then we found additional funds from the capital market. So with an equity investment in 2019, and then with the IPO in 2021. But we always try to have a balanced operation. And I think collaborations are important, not only as an opportunity to learn, but also as a source of revenues. And it's also a reality check to see if and when we are good enough for the partner.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation, and one that I haven't dug too deep into this and learned about how those collaborations work. But I'm just going to ask you. I'm curious about how, are those most often a case where some of those bigger players in the space come knocking on your door, to see what you're up to and what you're doing, if there's anything of interest to them, or is it an active pitching exercise on the part of Philogen to go out there and say, hey, look what we've got, this is something we're interested in collaborating on?
It's both. There have been opportunities triggered by publications. That's why I always stress, this research dimension of the company. I still think the best business development instrument is a good publication. Mm-hmm. But there have been, of course, opportunities where you go and visit companies, and sometimes you hear no thanks. Yeah. And sometimes actually the partner is intrigued, and then the collaboration starts. So I still think good science and hopefully good publications are key to business development, especially for small, medium-sized companies. But I'm sure there are many different ways of doing this. This is just the way we did it for the last 26 years.
Yeah, very interesting. And how does that, how do those opportunities, it occurs to me that as the business leader, taking off the science hat for a minute and thinking strictly about moving the business forward and making sure that you're moving the business forward in a way that aligns with your original intention. The more collaborative interest there is, I would think the more opportunity there might be to sort of derail the end goal of taking a proprietary candidate all the way to the commercial finish line, because certainly there's been, opportunities for out licensing and selling off assets where there's interest. So give me a little flavor on that, how you balance that sort of, in your CEO hat, how you balance that line as you move forward.
We try to have an open mind on this matter. If what is best for the product is to have a strong commercial partner with a track record in a given indication, that is probably a good strategy. But if we believe that our products are good and we have to make the next step in the growth of the company, which is really become a fully integrated company, then we will take this challenge and we will try and learn and maybe make mistakes. But the product drives everything. If the product is good and the trials go as well as the preliminary clinical trials suggest, that then of course you have the ambition to bring them to the market yourself. And that's something that at least for some of our products we will do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Has that been the goal from the outset, to carry that ball all the way to the commercial finish line? At least, or I should say maybe plural, multiple candidates.
I think the real ambition is to have the product approved and broadly used. And for the rest, we are not dogmatic. We try not to be dogmatic about partnering and also, but we are very passionate about science. And when we see these early signs of activity, then we want to go to the next chapter.
Yeah. And I know this is a difficult question to answer, but I'll ask you anyway to share. So you've got like I said, a few stage 3 clinical phase 3, that is, clinical candidates. What's next for those candidates? And dare I ask, looking out on the horizon, how far do you feel you are from achieving that approval goal?
So, the most advanced products are obviously Nidlegy and Fibromon. Nidlegy is approaching completion of recruitment of phase 3 in Europe. So soon it will read out. That will be a big moment for the company. We have passed 2 interim analyses that were foreseen in the program, in the protocol. So we are obviously very excited. And non-melanoma skin cancer is something that typically products in this indication are approved after phase 2. So you can actually see the effects because you're treating superficial conditions. And that's again something where we regularly present pictures to investors to show how the drug is working. So this is the Nidlegy situation. For Fibromon, we are trying very hard to complete recruitment for the first pivotal trials, both in soft tissue sarcoma and in glioblastoma by the end of 2023. So that's also approaching quite soon. And there is a last product I would like to mention, or better, a technology, which is called OncoFAP. We have recently disclosed and published that small molecule high affinity ligands to FAP, they are just fantastic targeting agents for many different types of tumors. We have published this striking ability to selectively localize to many different types of malignancies. Just 1 hour after the injection of the molecule, you basically see the tumor and nothing else. And this, of course, enables, even though this is early stage, the results for imaging are already mature. And so there we see an acceleration opportunity for imaging, for radionuclide therapy, and also for this growing field of small molecule drug conjugates that probably will be a nice complement to ADCs. Now the world is crazy about antibody drug conjugates, but what you can do with antibodies often you can do maybe even better with small ligands that go to the tumor fast. They're certainly cheaper to manufacture and they seem to have better tumor to organ ratio in vivo.
Mm-hmm. From a scientific perspective, what you just described, you crossed several sort of, I don't know if modalities is the right word, but areas of, therapeutic, I guess, intent. Has it been your position, even back to your academic days, to be sort of agnostic, if you will, around the approach that you're willing to embrace, or in the case of the business, the candidate that you're willing to invest development resources into, or the molecule that you're willing to invest development resources into, and potentially move into the pipeline? And if so, is that difficult to do as a scientist? I mean, you think of a scientist and you think of typically a person who has a very sort of narrow research focus, kind of lives in a certain silo, if you will. So just give me a little flavor on that. Are you open to the approach, or are there guardrails that you feel like you need to stay within?
We have 2 rules that we follow very strictly, which are, we like to stay out of the cell. So we like very much this concept of pharmacodelivery. Mm-hmm. So ligand-based pharmacodelivery and trying to operate the pharmaceutical approaches from outside the cell. Mm-hmm. And because anything you try to do with intracellular targets, it's probably an extra level of complexity. So there we have been very diligent. And the other one is really harness the potential of large encoded libraries. So for everything starts with discovery of ligands, and we have always invested a lot on ligand discovery. But for the indications, we have been more agnostic. So when we see a good opportunity, even if it's beyond oncology, which has always been a little bit our focus, we do it. And I really believe that this concept of anchoring payloads, bioactive payloads at the site of disease, really is useful beyond oncology. There are if I dream about the future opportunities, chronic inflammation, autoimmunity, fibrosis, osteoarthritis, growing cartilage. These are some of the dreams for the future. If we are able to anchor payloads at the site of disease, maybe with a little bit of luck, we will increase the therapeutic activity and help spare normal tissue. So this has been the general theme, but for the indication, we are more open.
Yeah. So there's this general theory, and then a world of opportunity. Many, I'm sure, yet undiscovered for that approach. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. What am I not asking you about Philogen that is central to the story, to the life that you're living right now, that you'd like to share with us about the company?
I think you've asked a lot of good questions, and I hope I've given you candid and open answers. The next will be written in the clinical trials. If we reach our goals, then I will be truly satisfied, and I will feel that all the work, not only of my family, but all the collaborators, was worth. But it's work in progress. I want to be very honest on this matter. We are trying hard.
Well, yeah, it goes without saying. I spend most of my days interviewing executives from emerging and mid-clinical stage, typically biopharma companies, and we all know that it's work in progress, and the devil's in the details of the data. Fascinating story, though. I mean, just a fascinating story. The genesis of the company, the family history in the business. It feels as though success isn't your only option. It's as though it's written in history and written in the stars. So I'm rooting for you, Dr. Neri. What's next for you personally? I mean, obviously this mission is yet to be achieved. You're going to stay there and continue doing the hard work that you're doing. And seeing that through, but you've had a very distinguished career to date. You've done a lot of stuff. What do you see kind of happening? Let's say post phase 3 clinical on your 3 leading candidates.
Challenges will continue. We hopefully, if we bring products to the market as we hope and aim for, then we will have to grow commercial operations. I follow research very closely, very, very closely, and that has not changed over the years. So next week I will be 59 years old. I still like what I do, and so I think that's what I will keep doing for the coming years.
Wow, excellent. And happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. I was born on May 1st, which in Italy is Labor's Day. So I'll try to work well and hard also in the coming years.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. And you look great for 59.
Lost my hair, and so I have my brothers, if I can say.
Well, Dr. Neri, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure to talk with you and get an update on the company and learn about what you're doing. Continued good work to you, and thanks again.
Thanks a lot for the interview. Bye-bye.
So that's Philogen's Dr. Dario Neri. I'm Matt Pillar, and this is the Business of Biotech. We're produced by Bioprocess Online in partnership with Cytiva. Check out Cytiva's Biotech Accelerator, built for the leaders of new and emerging biotech at cytiva.com/emerging biotech. Check us out and sign up for my newsletter at bioprocessonline.com. And if you're enjoying listening in on conversations with brilliant innovators like Dr. Neri, please subscribe, slide all the way to the right, give us a 5-star review. And as always, thank you for listening.